Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us for Artists in Conversation at the KMA. We have a really special program today with the illustrator and author Amanda Hall and Michelle Markel. The program for today is inspired by one of our current exhibitions, Leonora Carrington, Dream Weaver, which we're very proud to be hosting. This show was originated at the Rose Museum at Brandeis and was curated by Gannett and Corey, who is the director and chief curator of the Rose. And we are the only other venue that is hosting this show after the Rose. So we're just really, really thrilled and very honored about that. This project, this particular program for today is the brainchild of my colleague, the indefatigable Margaret Adasco, who is our curator of education. We have at the KMA a really wonderful and longstanding tradition of promoting the work of illustrators, and particularly children's book illustrators, in our Pollock Learning Center. So Margaret found this really wonderful book that we'll be talking about today, Out of This World, The Surreal Art of Leonora Carrington. And we were so fortunate to be able to show actual works, original illustrations from the book that were the work of Amanda Hall, and also to join in conversation with both Amanda and Michelle Markel, who's the author of the book. And we have a really wonderful program for you all, thinking a little bit about how this book came to be made, their collaboration, and the most interesting question of all, why Leonora? So before I let them take it away, just a little bit of housekeeping. This is being recorded, and at the end of our talk, which will be about 50 minutes or so, we have about 10 minutes for questions, and we invite you at any point while you're listening to this conversation to go to the little box at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A. You can click on that and you can send us a question. At the end, we'll review them, and I'll try to get to as many questions as possible. So we really hope that you guys will have a chance to speak with these wonderful artists and authors together. If you would like closed captioning, at the bottom of your screen, there should be an option that says show captions. So please feel free to hit that as well. If you guys have questions, again, put things in the chat. Finally, just a few thank yous. Thank you very much to Arts Westchester for making this exhibition possible. Thank you also, as always, to the Katonah Museum of Art's Directors Circle for supporting this project. And thank you again to the New York State, excuse me, the New York State Council for the Arts for their support as well. And then I would have to thank Margaret, our other colleague, Gabby Blumenthal, our colleague, Tara Tomaselli, and our wonderful interns who all worked very, very hard on this project. But most of all, thank you and welcome to Amanda and to Michelle. I'd love to ask Margaret if you could just move, yeah, there we go, just to have a little view of the exhibition itself. And then to show Margaret's wonderful work and Gabby's wonderful work in the Learning Center, which of course features the work of Amanda, inspired by her collaboration with Michelle. Here's our Learning Center. And if you'd show the next slide, please. There we go. Here are some of these beautiful images, the illustrations that are in this book that we're going to be talking about in a little bit more detail. I wanted to just introduce you a little bit to these two wonderful creative women, and then I'm going to really turn things over to them. So Amanda.
Hello.
Hello, Amanda and Michelle. Amanda was born and raised in Cambridgeshire in England and is an award-winning children's book illustrator with a passion for visual storytelling. Her process is very meticulous and involves layering watercolor, ink, colored pencils, pastels, gouache, or acrylic paints, and sometimes with digital editions. And these result, as we're going to see soon, in these very lively and vibrant illustrations. Her artwork has won a number of awards, and specifically this book, Out of This World, which is written by Michelle Markel, was named as one of the Bank Street College's best children's books of the year for 2020. How the Sea Came to Be and All the Creatures in It by Jennifer Byrne was included in the New York Public Library NYPL, Best Books of 2023. And she's been recognized in a number of other children's book categories. Michelle grew up in Culver City, California, and started a career as a journalist, writing for the LA Times before she transitioned into writing children's books when her daughters were young. She's been the author of numerous titles, ranging from fictional stories to nonfiction biographical works, and her writing has been described as engaging, evocative, and educational, and we can agree. Her book, I love this title, Tomfoolery, Randolph Caldecott and the Rambunctious Coming of Age of Children's Books, has been recognized as a Publishers Weekly Best Book of 2023, a Bank Street starred Best Children's Book of 2023, and it won a 2024 Golden Kite Award for nonfiction for young readers, given by the Society of Children's Books Writers, Authors, and Illustrators. Out of This World is actually the second time that these two artists have collaborated after the success of their first book, The Fantastic Jungles of Henri Rousseau, which was published in 2012. And I think we have an example of that right over Amanda's shoulder. Is that right?
I can hold that up.
Yes, please. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So this is not their first foray into artists as well, and we are the beneficiaries of this wonderful collaboration. To get started, ladies, I had a warm-up question. For people who write and create art for kids, I'm wondering what books or illustrators did you guys love when you were kids?
I've got something I can show if you'd like. Okay. Now, this is one of the books. It's the Hans Andersen wonderful story, The Snow Queen. And the book is called, it's a collection of fairy tales. It's called BB's Fairy Book Meeting Hill. And where is it? It's by, with illustrations by DJ Watkins Pitchford. So that I just loved. And another one I can show is, it was actually my brother's book. I've still got these. I didn't ever give him this back because I loved it so much. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Amazing book on prehistoric animals by, I think it's, I'm not quite sure where it's was published, but it's by Dr. Joseph Augusta, and the illustrations of Zdeněk Burian, and they are just fantastic. Long time ago that both those books were done, but you know, I still look at them very often and absolutely love them. And there are countless other books, but those were two that I thought I'd show.
Thank you. Michelle.
First of all, I just want to thank you for including me today in this wonderful talk.
Oh, thank you for joining us.
My first picture book love was Madeline by Ludwig Bemelmans, who actually was influenced by the Fauves, an artist group that loved very vivid, expressive colors. And I think he was that book was my introduction to that sort of vivid, expressive art. And I became a French major, and I'm blaming it on Ludwig Bemelmans. I also loved fairy tales and biographies of athletes, and you might think those are two really, really distinct categories, but you know, they're both sort of transformational. There's so many fairy tales where the underdog succeeds, you know, and realizes their gifts that they have, and you know, sports stories so much as rags to riches, and I just love this. I just love that transformation that happens in lives. So there you go.
Oh, that's great. Is the Bemelmans and the Fauves, did that sort of push you into Rousseau or lead you gently toward Rousseau? Was there, or was that just a kind of lucky outcome that you ended up working on a book about Rousseau?
I'd say on a subconscious level. It wasn't conscious. It was
Well,
there.
subconscious works great for Leonora. We spend a lot of time
Yes.
thinking about subconscious with Leonora
Absolutely.
Carrington. Well, thank you guys. Thank you. That's a great introduction to see that this has been something that's important to you through your whole lives. I'd love to actually really kind of start to focus on the book itself. And I thought a nice way to start would be to invite Michelle to read a little section from the book. So Michelle, if you'd be willing, we'd love to have that.
Okay. Leonora's parents wanted her to be like every other well-bred English girl, but she was not. At the age of 4, Leonora started scribbling on the walls, then on paper, and soon the pictures came flooding out. She sketched the birds that peered at her from the stained glass windows of her mansion. She sketched the horses she'd seen at stables. She drew maps of make-believe planets and illustrated fables about their native creatures. How she loved fantastic tales. Her grandma told enchanting legends from Ireland, the land of their ancestors. The stories took Leonora to worlds that shimmered beyond this one. And when the spirits flew and the gods stirred their cauldrons and the fairies shifted shapes, something flew and stirred and shifted inside of her.
Fantastic. Very inspiring, I have to say, the words. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, we're going to get into that right now, actually, about the origins of the books, the words that led to the illustrations. I'd love for the two of you to tell us a little bit about the origins of the book. How did you come to be?
Amanda,
I'll say a bit about this, yeah. And also I want to say thank you for inviting me here. I should have said that, but it's a wonderful thing to be part of. Yeah, well, as you've said, Liz, we both, Michelle and I, worked on the Fantastic Jungles of Henri Rousseau, but that wasn't actually in the form of a collaboration. The way that happened was I was sent Michelle's text by Erdmann's, the publisher, and I thought, you know, all my Christmases had come at once because he's sort of one of my very favorite artists. So it was just a complete joy to work on that book. And for me, it was quite a breakthrough. The publisher were fantastic at sort of giving me a lot of scope creatively. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. It took probably longer than it should have done, but I kind of poured my heart and soul into it. And we had a little bit of contact, Michelle and I, while I was working on that. And this can really vary with illustrators and authors. And I'm sure Michelle will say a bit more about that. But there were sort of details I needed to find out about historically and so on. And Michelle was very forthcoming about that. So after that experience, and the book came out in 2012, as you said, I thought, well, I enjoyed that. I was wondering, you know, whether Michelle would be open to the idea of maybe working on something else in a kind of more of a collaborative way. So we sort of made contact, and we ended up sort of setting up a meeting here because as you say, I live in the UK, and Michelle came over and we had a meeting, and I think I should now pass over to Michelle to kind of continue this story, what happened next. Yeah, so that's how it began for me.
okay, I just wanted to add that it's not typical at all for artists and authors to collaborate. It's the publisher who chooses the illustrator. The further on you are in your career, you may get a little bit of input as the writer, but typically not. So we knew that if we embarked on this project, we would be breaking the rules. But I think once we started talking about these women surrealists, the feminists, these strong women, I think we were just, I mean, I will say this for myself, I think we were sort of inspired by their strength and just felt gung-ho, and we're just going to do this.
Yeah.
So I went to the exhibit in Wonderland at LACMA, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and I saw some of Remedios Varo's paintings and Leonora's, and I was very inspired. Ultimately, I decided that I should focus on Leonora. I think a lot of her paintings are so engaging for children. I thought children would love her, the magic quality in them, the mystical quality, the love of animals, the closeness to nature. And then, her narrative itself of being defiant and independent and, a strong woman for the female artists out there, the budding female artists. So that's what I was thinking. You have to pick, for a picture book biography, you need a story that is going to engage children somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately we decided on Leonora. Amanda, is there any more to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I was just also going to say that being, very often as an illustrator, you're sort of, you come in later on, the text exists, the publisher have decided what they're going to do, so you're not there at the kind of, at the first moment. So this was a very different process. We sort of put it together independently of a publisher, and we presented it as a submission. So that's a very different thing, because we had a lot of control over it. We weren't sure where it was going to be picked up, which publisher were going to be interested in it. But it was a very independent way, as Michelle said, of going about producing a picture book. And I really enjoyed that. I loved collaborating with Michelle. Just great. Yeah.
Same
So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. And I love that you've teased out the defiance and the sort of, pioneering aspect of creating a book in a way that's not quite in line with the industry of bookmaking as it is today. And Leonora Carrington and the other female surrealists, and the way that they were really defying some paths and finding their own. So I think, thank you for drawing that out. I think that's really wonderful. Can you guys go into a little bit more detail about the process of creating this book together, the nuts and bolts? Things like, how did you communicate with each other during this process? What kinds of things did you discuss? Did anything change along the way? And how long did the project take to complete? We'd love to know things like that.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
I think we trusted each other and respected each other as creatives. We both pretty much stayed out of each other's way. I started off by writing the manuscript and then passed it on to Amanda. And then we communicated only if there were questions or to support each other or help each other. Amanda actually sent me a book at one point, and I answered some questions that Amanda had. So that Amanda, was anything else to add on that, on the collaborative?
Yeah, well, we'll come to it later with the Surrealist catalogue and so on. But I think we shared things with each other if we felt that we had something to contribute. But writing and illustrating are such very different processes. So there's no way I would kind of want to interject, in the writer's process. And I felt very, reciprocal respect from Michelle, and that was great. I mean, I did occasionally ask if I'd sort of wondered whether something was kind of at a very early stage in the development of the pictures. I think I sent you one or two things, Michelle. That was really helpful to get feedback, but mostly I was kind of in my own sort of world, relating to the text, relating to the research I was doing, and you were asking whether things changed along the way. Absolutely. I mean, for me, the whole the whole kind of evolution of a book takes a long time. I mean, this book, you also asked about the amount of time. Well, we originally met in 2013 and right here in this studio, and I actually delivered the artwork in 2017, so that gestation period was like 4 years. You know, a lot of the time was taken up with doing the illustrations, but as a lot of time goes into thinking and evolving and reading and looking at imagery, looking at photographs of Leonora, looking at her work, and then allowing it to kind of brew internally, unconsciously, as you were saying, you know, and kind of crystallizing. And for me, that happens on the page. It starts as kind of little doodles, as you'll see later in the slides, that mean nothing to anybody else, but to me, they're kind of all the thinking is kind of there, the ideas I'm trying to capture before they disappear off. So yeah, that's how it works for me. Over to you, Michelle, if you want to add anything.
I think maybe we should move things on to the manuscript and your wonderful storyboards, Amanda. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my process. So for writing a picture book, you want a picture book biography. You really want to get as close as you can to the subject matter. And so that means not only reading other biographies about this person, but also about their world. So I did a lot of extra research on, you know, the debutantes and upper class British society, of course, on the Surrealist, which we'll talk about a little bit more. I read those Irish fairy tales, which were wonderful. I read interviews with Leonora. I read her writing, and she was a wonderful, wonderful writer, really imaginative and funny.
Oh gosh, yes, so funny, so funny.
There's a lot of humor. I think there's gentle humor in a lot of her paintings as well. So this book, Surreal Friends, was an excellent resource for learning about the friendship between Leonora Remedios Faro and also Katie Horna, or Kati, I don't know for sure how you pronounce your name. Leonora and Remedios were best friends, and there was some wonderful material in here. This cover image comes from the house opposite, which I ended up referencing in my story, and which I think also inspired Amanda in her illustration. So after I do all of the research, as Amanda said, it sort of needs to crystallize, but it comes out in early manuscripts. If we could move on to the next one. So I start writing, and revision is largely, but not only, deleting and getting rid of things. So this is a page, this is the part of the story where Leonora leaves her home and goes to study art in London. And you can see I have a little note that says delete. There's so much fun material that I couldn't put in here. She had an art professor who made her draw the same apple for months as it was deteriorating. That's just funny, but you know, a picture book is only 1,000 words, and it's sort of like a poem, and you just can't have everything in there. So that went, and then I have the next section is about her first encounters with the Surrealists. And in one of the interviews, I read that it was like a match was struck inside her when she first saw probably Max Ernst, some of his artwork. I just thought that was such a wonderful image. And I try to do that. I try to incorporate, you know, words from the actual person I'm writing about. So maybe we should move on to the next. Okay. Also, as a picture book author, I have to visualize the different pages, and I have to give opportunities to the illustrator to interpret my words. So you can see there's lots of little boxes on the left, and that's what I was doing. This is Mexico and Frida in there. I was thinking of the different scenes, I call them, that the illustrator, Amanda in this case, which she would be illustrating. And then on the right, I have some explorations, I would call them, about what I was going to write for the Surrealists. And I doodled a little bit, and I harvested actually some of this material about her summoning memories and secret wishes, because I was thinking about this process that the surrealists have of trying to get in touch with their subconscious and all the little experiments and exercises they would do. So there you go.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Shall we take a look at some of the storyboards that accompany these?
Yeah.
Yes.
This shall I say a bit about this, Liz?
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is my storyboard. This is an early stage of it. This is sort of me plotting out the actual kind of format, so I know the kind of space I'm working within, and I've put the text, Michelle's text. I've sort of dropped it into the different pages, so I can see the space I've got. And then I mean, these are actually sort of, even though I said they're early, they're kind of they're quite evolved. In fact, the images here, even though I reworked them massively from here, a lot of them. But I've dropped into my storyboards some little images, like of the Surrealist exhibition, the different people kind of posing and so on, just to kind of thought-provoking things. So yeah, that's what that's about. So it's a kind of map, but in very small scale. I know they're probably quite hard to see because it's tiny. This, I've reduced it everything right down so I can just put it onto one sheet and kind of see it as a whole. So yeah, that's probably all there is to say in a way about that. Just to say, in this picture is Edward James, the art dealer, talking to Leonora later on in her studio. He's an amazing character in himself. Anyway, won't go into him just right now. Yeah.
I loved the kind of similarity in the practices, and particularly I loved what you said, Michelle, that a picture book is like a poem. You know, that so many things must be evoked, and your process of deleting, which I can imagine sometimes must be agony. Amanda, did you have a similar process for visual forms where you had to delete or remove things or say, I can't include this part of the story? Was there a visual version of what Michelle's process was like?
I'm just trying to think. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm working with the text is sort of fixed by the time the publisher kind of signs it off.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know which pages it's going to fall in. So that's kind of established. But yeah, in terms of what I kind of came up with to interpret the different chunks of text, passages of text. Yes, I mean, I did sort of, what I try to do is kind of work very loosely early on, and then you know, obviously there's a relationship with, I mean, by this time, because the book had been placed with HarperCollins by this stage, you know, I wasn't, when you submit, you've got the text and you've got maybe 2 images that are finished, and they might not make the final cut. You know, the whole thing might change. So by the time we got to the storyboard, HarperCollins had contracted this book, so that, you know, there's a relationship then between me, what I'm doing, and sending it off to the publisher. I try and keep it very loose to start with, so if they want changes at that point, I can easily make them. It's not sort of, I haven't invested that much time, but that, you know, the ideas are kind of transmittable. There's enough there for them to see and to comment on and say, yeah, you know, that looks okay, or kind of, we don't like that. I don't remember them being, I can't remember what happened at that point, but essentially then, you know, once that's kind of more established, I then go on and start to evolve each spread in more depth. So I think some are, maybe it's good to move on at this point. I can't remember. Yeah, probably then I think we were going to talk about the that first spread, but I'll go back to you, Liz, because I'm getting in your way now.
No, this is absolutely fantastic. You've made our segue, which is
okay,
fantastic. Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, the next set of questions that I really had for the two of you was that we have a few spreads that I was hoping we could kind of think about in detail about the process of the creation of these. This one is one we've already seen when Michelle was reading for us earlier. Pictures come flooding out. Would you guys please tell us a little bit about the process of creating this image and of where it fits in the book?
You
We'd
want to
love
say the writing first, Michelle, for this?
I think I kept it sort of vague. You know, the pictures came flooding out instead of giving any details about what those pictures may have looked like, and that's giving room for the illustrator. And also, you know, you've got flooding out. You want verbs. You need strong verbs in the writing, and then there's motion in the pictures, right?
Yeah.
That's what I would say about the language there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amanda, please walk us through the process of making this image a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what we're looking at now is obviously the finished image, but this is kind of part of my starting point. Yeah, Liz, if you could go to the next slide, that would be brilliant. I did a lot of trawling around the internet looking for pictures of Leonora, and there are a lot, but some, you know, when she was a little girl. So that was great. I mean, what a character, you know, there's determination in her face, you know. So I think my first image was trying to capture her, you know, the first image I worked on was trying to capture her character, really, and you know, this signifier hair of hers became a thing, you know, and it was a wonderful gift for an illustrator, her wonderful kind of black locks, you know, so I kind of exploited that for all I was worth. So yeah, so these were kind of early pictures of her. Then what we've got here, these are just kind of a kind of selection of the things I was looking at. The pictures on top left are some of her early childhood drawings, which I can't remember where I found those, but I did. And then there's some other paintings of hers, her famous painting on the right, of the hyena and her wild hair. So I was trying to kind of group together little kind of triggers for myself. The little dress that other little girl is wearing, you know, she was a very posh little girl and living in Lancashire, in fact, in England, growing up in Crookhay Hall, this huge house. So if you could move on to the next one, please, next slide. This is my very first sort of stab at this spread. I kind of wanted her in a sort of I don't know, this kind of doll's house image came to mind. That's what I started with sort of her kind of lying down and kind of painting inside this little kind of house. But that sort of bit the dust and evolved. I like the spiral staircase that's on the right, and then her mother sort of looking up, and her painting on the walls seemed good. Good thing to go for, and then that kind of progressed. And I know at one point I sent this this image in rough to the editor, and at the time it was a single. I just had it as a single spread, just sort of like half the book across. There you can see. And she really liked this image, the main image, and she said, I remember her saying, "This is so fun, I want to see it across the whole spread." So that's what I did. I kind of expanded the spread. I think for me it was quite a good move to have her. I was really pleased with that, having her, Leonora, kind of right in the foreground and kind of painting kind of at us. And so, you know, rather than being seen from a distance, we're kind of in her space. And then the mother sort of looking on, slightly kind of bemused and what on earth she's getting up to, kind of painting on the walls. So yeah, that's how that spread. I mean, there were many stages along the way, many bits of paper stuck onto other bits of paper, so I could see through and evolve this image. and refine it, which is my process for developing pictures.
I love her pose.
Yeah.
And the horse is
Yes.
important too. She loved horses, and she had a horse. Right?
Yeah.
And the horse, the rocking horse, is kind of trying to get out of the match, kind of wild, where the actual other real horse is. So sort of, there was this feeling of, you know, a rather gloomy kind of house, you know, so the colors are quite muted, really. I wanted that to be the case with this. Yeah.
I love that you've pointed out the hair in the photograph, because now looking at Leonora's hair with these Medusa tendrils, everything is taking on those kind of curly-Q swirls, whether it's the painting she's done on the walls, the staircase, even the kind of perspective. So it's so interesting to see that that can start with something as, you know, as powerful as an image just of her, you know, her hair as a young child. That's really great.
Yeah.
Shall we move on and take a look at another of these wonderful images? This one, I think there's, again, also a lot to say about. Would you guys walk us through this image related to the Surrealist exhibition? You know, where is it in the book? What's going on here within the story? And then how did it come to look like this?
So Leonora is studying art in London when she has an acquaintance who introduces her to Max Ernst. But she actually she said that she fell in love with his artwork before she fell in love with him, actually. So then she goes to the exhibition in London. And I did so much research about this period and about the Surrealists. And I had to, again, Amanda said crystallize, I'd say, you know, distill, condense, and also try to leave room for the illustrator here. And I ended up just saying that this group of artists were stunning London with their mysterious creations. Let's see, what else did I want to say about this? Oh, just all the research that went into, you know, Andre Breton and what he was like, and, you know, from primary sources, people who knew him, and really trying to understand them. And I think Amanda asked me for if I had some information about the specific artists that were at that exhibition. And I came across this catalog, which is just so wonderful, with the signatures of some of the participants there and the list of who was the various artists and sculptors. And so I passed it on to her. So that was a great example of our collaboration.
That's great. And just for our viewers, this would have been a really important exhibition and catalog for Leonora Carrington herself, a show that was really formative for her own work.
Very pivotal.
Yeah. Yeah, please, you have so many great slides coming up. Tell us a little bit about how these images fit within that that page spread you've made. What's their relationship? Tell us about them a little bit.
Well, you know, just absorbing kind of mad imagery. The Dali who nearly died in his swimsuit, his diving suit, because they had to unbolt him. He was suffocating. But because, you know, these artists actually were, you know, their work is not in the public domain in terms of, you know, you can't actually copy what they've done. So my challenge, as with Leonora's work, was to think, and it was a really exciting challenge as an illustrator, how to reinterpret without sort of treading on their toes visually. So, you know, again, just absorbing. I'm this wonderful woman, Sheila Legg, who went around Trafalgar Square with her head covered in roses with, I think, ladybirds and so on, kind of crawling over them. My version of her, you can see in the illustration, she's actually not holding a leg, she's holding an arm, and she's got a big flower, as a single flower as her head. So things like that. I've got Rennie Magritte kind of running off into the abyss. And there's a particular image that's referred to in Michelle's text about one of Max Ernst's images, which is a creature made of leaves. I think you might have that in a subsequent slide. Yeah, this one. So, you know, that's the image, that's his image on the left. And so I had to completely reinterpret that. So, and he was so central to Leonora. I made that the kind of dominant image in my version of this exhibition. So it was a lot of fun, really, to kind of think how to kind of reinterpret. And this is I know an image by De Chirico, and I was sort of looking at his, I've always loved his kind of very strange, sort of silent landscape, cityscapes, or whatever, how you describe them. And I wanted to kind of use some of that kind of colonnades in my image as well, as a kind of inspiration point. Yeah.
Margaret, could you go back, please, to the slide of the Surrealist exhibition in the book? One more, please. Yeah, this is one more, please. Okay, one more. Great, perfect. I loved the little jokes. You guys have both talked about Carrington's wonderful sense of humor, and the jokes that come up in here. Sheila Legge, Legge, at the opening events for this surrealism exhibition, did show up to the event with a pork chop that in the course of the event did go off. So instead of carrying the pork chop, there she was with a leg. And as Amanda's discussed, she's changed it out for an arm. So there are these really kind of wonderful details from the surrealists being quite surreal from these historical events as they have been recorded to us that the Amanda has pulled out and used in here as kind of little, they're, you know, these wonderful little historical references that are just, you know, they're really quite funny to imagine. So I just wanted to call out those little details. And I love this newspaper clipping that's actually about her, needed pork chop to complete dress. I thought it was just fabulous.
Can I say something about Leonora here? Because
Yeah.
there's an image, if we go on a few, there's an image of Leonora being coming out, as it's called, was called, but it actually still happens. There she is with her mother. She's looking very dismal and depressed. And she's in her ball gown and she's about to be presented to, I think it would have been George VI, the king, because she was a young debutante. And as Michelle said, I think she actually wrote a book, didn't she, called The Debutante. And I was trying to kind of get this sense of Leonora sort of peeling off this kind of carapace that she'd been told was her destiny, which was very clearly in Michelle's text, and how, you know, how to convey that she did not want to be that person. So in the final image you saw, I had her kind of casting off her sort of fan and, you know, her shoes and so on, and sort of letting go of the accoutrements of her kind of class, if you like, and becoming the artist then that she wanted to be. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's great. Michelle, anything to add with these images?
Just that I loved it, and that I just think Amanda did a wonderful job with all her research. I will say not every illustrator is as diligent and thorough as Amanda, in my experience. So, I mean, I just trusted her and respect her so much. I just think she did a wonderful job.
Well, thank you.
It really, the care in looking at these works is so clear, not only in the iconographic references, you know, again, I'm returning to the wonderful pork chop here, but even things like the perspectives that are used to show spatial relationships, things that are looking either to De Chirico or to other surrealists, things that feel outside our normal realm of experience. And that's so wonderful to see those details that enliven a children's book. So even in the way the whole set of images is composed, I think there's a lot of attention to this this way of thinking like a surrealist. So yeah, I certainly agree, Michelle. I think we have time for one more image. If we could go to the last one, which is really kind of a wonderful scene. Tell us a little bit about everything that's going on here, both at this point in the book, in Leonora Carrington's life, and also in the image. There's just so much at work here.
So at this point in the book, Leonora, as well as a number of artists and writers, many of them surrealists, have fled Europe during World War II, and Mexico welcomed them. And at first she had a hard time because it was a very different culture, but because there were so many expats, they befriended each other, and Leonora became very close to Remedios, and they spent so much time together, and they had so much fun together. They dressed up in costumes. They created crazy, absurdist recipes for dreaming you're the King of England.
Mm-hmm.
They were playful and collaborative, and I really love that aspect of Leonora. I think there's so many male artists that can be very competitive. I know that's a generalization, but we've read about that. But these women collaborated so much and inspired each other. And Remedios and Leonora had a lot in common. They both loved the Italian painters, the medieval period, mysticism, the occult, and alchemy. And so at this point, Leonora is painting basically the house opposite. And you can just see all of these wonderful images here. I referred to the bubbling green potion, and there. And I think that's the setup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from my point of view, what I wanted to do, rather than, as I say, because there is a picture, a painting by Leonora called The House Opposite. Well, I did not want to I wanted to get into the spirit of it. And so I kind of went back and looked at some of the source material that I felt that Leonora might have been looking at. And I think some of the slides, some of the Renaissance paintings, early Renaissance, I think particularly that there are sort of these cutaway buildings, which I absolutely love. And some of I think maybe the slide after this, it's got very, very strange people kind of disappearing, kind of forcing themselves through walls and things, which is sort of I think kind of some of the things that were going on in Leonora's original painting of that. The house opposite. She's got people floating through kind of space in a very strange way. So I was looking at all these kinds of things, and I've always loved these early, particularly early Renaissance paintings. I really love them. So I was trying to kind of get into some of that, get that into kind of the picture, have this very open framework. So are you inside, are you outside, who knows? It's sort of both, really. And obviously, and this is a kind of a couple of early images where I was just sort of playing around with how's this going to work. So you can just see some early ideas there. The other thing I had is I had a kind of thread of this going all the way through the book, and it was my sort of addition in a way, was the beautiful pea green boat of Edward Lear and the Owl and the Pussycat, and I sort of had Leonora kind of journeying through her life, really, visually, sort of, kind of on her magical journey, really, and I kind of put her in this pea green boat, so it sort of crops up in my images at different times, and there it is. She's then sort of going up the staircase, having kind of left the little boat tied up, but she's sort of then wandering through. So she's there at different stages of her life, kind of wandering around. So that was how I interpreted it. And then obviously she's there in the foreground popping a chocolate into her mouth. I think that was the line in the text. And sort of I think she's very happy at this point, isn't she, Michelle? Like, that's
yeah.
she's settled, she's kind of got her life together, she's creative, and she's got her friendships and so on. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that some of the sources say that Leonora and Remedios actually didn't feel oppressed by being mothers and having families, and that they enjoyed the domestic sphere, you know, and they're cooking and they're brewing things. And I thought that was very interesting, because a lot of people are struggling with, a lot of young women struggle with, you know, how to be an artist and also a mom. So she found it very inspiring, and she thinks some of her best work was done when she was a young mother.
We have studies in the exhibition about her painting Night Nursery Everything, and that is a work accompanied by a really lovely quote in the galleries by Leonora about the importance of the experience of motherhood, that it was in no way for her incompatible with being an artist. It was a new phase of her life, and I do think that's an interesting aspect about this particular group of surrealist women. We are about to move on into our questions time, but before we move on, there's a really wonderful drawing that you two did that is your own kind of surrealist collaboration that I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about.
Shall I mention this to start with?
Please.
There's actually 4 people involved. This is Michelle and me, but also our partners. And it's a transatlantic exquisite corpse. It was started in the UK, in Cambridge, with the first 2 sections. And then sent across the Atlantic and completed by Michelle and her husband. So Michelle, over to you to explain what exquisite corpse is and how you do it.
Oh, yes. So you take a piece of paper and you fold it, and you are not supposed to look at the what's underneath, what you're not looking at. I can't, I don't think I'm doing this justice, but there are directions. It's not that complicated. The main thing is you only have one strip, and there's just a few lines that the person who did the picture before you did, there's just so that you can continue those lines and play with them. And so when we sent this to each other, there was no peeking. You could not cheat. You just look at those little lines and you continue them and set up for the next person.
That's great.
So there you go.
This is a surrealist practice, along with things like automatic writing, where you'd have one surrealist artist would start an image and just cover most of it, just leaving a tiny bit for another person to begin their own creative input with just that little hint of what had come before. So you get these wonderful chimera-like fantastical creatures that may have some relationship to reality. Maybe you have a tree or an elephant trunk, and then it turns into a flower or a camel, or who knows what it is. So these 2 artists are continuing this really kind of wonderful surrealist process, and I've loved talking to you about your process and all the ways it does kind of resonate with Carrington and her peers at the time. I think that's really kind of a wonderful little outcome that we've learned about. I have thousands of questions for both of you, but I think instead of being greedy, I'm going to actually open up our Q&A. We are just a little bit past 3:50, so I thought, if it's okay with you guys, that I'd give you some questions that we've been asked.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Okay. One. I'm a first-time author illustrator. My book, Gerald Grasshopper Moves to New York City, is being published now. What advice can you give me as a novice in the industry?
Oh, that's wide.
Yeah, that's wide.
I mean, fantastic. Well, fantastic. Whew, I think every artist certainly has to kind of find their own way. I don't know. I find that quite hard to answer. I think it's quite a wide question, really. Yeah. Michelle, over to you.
I think it's important to have a community of other writers or illustrators that you can get advice from. That's, I think, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators is a wonderful source. Going to meetings, there is a wealth of information to be learned from them. They have all sorts of events.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. A few other questions dealing specifically with your process. Would someone ask, how did you develop the overall look of the books, the colors, the scale, the vibrancy, etc.? I think we discussed a little bit, Amanda, you were mentioning the more muted palette of the home in England. Perhaps you can say something about the change in the palette as she changes locations, Mexico, for example, other places. How did that develop?
Yeah, I think, I mean, often when I'm working on a book, I'll kind of have a certain limited palette, but I think with this, it did sort of move around quite a lot. As you say, the Mexican, that spread, the one set in Mexico in the streets. I mean, you know, the Mexican colors are just so vibrant, and you know, Leonora would have been bowled over by that shift. Seeing that for the first time, coming from England, which was, you know, very drab color wise at the time, you know, lots of browns and dingy greens. So that would have been just an explosion for her, you know. So trying to reflect that. I mean, you know, I work in the same way, sort of, although I use different materials, my process sort of doesn't really change. I think I've got quite a distinctive style, and I kind of, even if I wanted to, I couldn't really sort of do anything differently. That's what comes out of me. But it's kind of harnessing it within a kind of certain format. You know the scale, you know the proportions of the pages, so it's really important to sort of work within that, and where's the text going to be positioned, and how, you know, are you going to leave big holes in your images? That is a problem. So it's sort of having to be clever about that.
Oops, hello. Thank you. I thought that was really kind of an important aspect of the tonal shift in the book. It was from a more sort of gloomy period in her life to such a period of creativity and abundance, and the way the colors shifted was such a really clear signifier of that change within the narrative that Michelle is leading us through. So thank you for that. Question that somebody had that I also have is, what's next for the two of you? And will you work on another project together?
There's nothing at the moment, is there, Michelle? But sorry, over to you.
Nothing at the moment, but that, you know, you just never know. It depends on, yeah. I think Amanda's up to all sorts of other activities right now.
Yeah. Yes, I'm doing a lot of pattern work and designing patterns and so on. So having a kind of some space from working on picture books, sort of cleansing my palette a bit, because the books take a long time. You know, they're kind of you know, you're living with Leonora Carrington for sort of 4 years, you know. So yeah, we don't know, but you know, but that's what's exciting as well. Yeah. So yeah.
I've got some of my own personal projects that I'm working on that are, I have like a STEM topic biography I'm working on now. But who knows what will happen with that book. We'll see.
And that's a nonfiction book.
Oh yeah, another picture book biography. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So not an artist. My first science related book.
Well, we need scientists too. So
Yes.
that's a good thing to be doing. Oh, here's an interesting question. Did the visuals created by Amanda match anything that you had in your own head, Michelle, or were they surprises? Did you have anything in your head? What was that experience like?
That's a really good question. I would say that when I'm in general, I don't have really specific images in mind. I have more of a vibe of like a vibe of what the picture should look like. So, and Amanda just totally got that vibe. I just felt like we were like soulmates for these projects.
That's very Carrington and Varro. It's very Remedios Varro and Leonora Carrington.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's really lovely.
I always think it must be very difficult for an author have to sort of hand over their work and trust. And maybe if they have a very fixed set of images in their head, it must be quite hard. Somebody does something very different. I don't know how you cope. It's easier for the illustrator from that point of view, I think.
Well, I suppose it's kind of an exquisite corpse in a way, even that. You start and you create your image and then you let it go and see what someone else, how they're going to interpret it in the next round. You guys are just surrealists all the way down. I love it. It's great. Oh, well, I think I'm going to end not with a question, but with a compliment to the two of you. Someone just said, thank you for such an interesting program, and I love the book. And repeated, I wonder if you're planning another collaboration. So the KMA Peanut Gallery is hoping for that, for what it's worth. Thank you both very much. Do you have anything you'd like to add to us? We're pretty close to time, but it's been such a pleasure that I wanted to see if there's anything else either one of you would like to add.
It's just been a delight. I mean, it's been lovely to the whole thing, soup to nuts. It's been fantastic to work with you and to be part of this. Yeah.
And I would just like to thank you and say, have fun, whatever it is that you're trying to create. Don't worry about if you're going to sell it or not. The important thing is to play. This is part of the Surrealist, manifesto. Play, have fun, and just enjoy being creative.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think we could say anything better than that. That seems to be the perfect way to end. Thank you both so much. Thank you very, very much for this. This was really great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you all for joining us.